Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fight Addicts. Get ready to explore the past, present, and future of MMA with your hosts, Seth Oliver and Ben Korn.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fight Addicts. Today is June the 26th, and this has been a crazy week for this podcast. Those of you watching on YouTube already see that Ben's not here with me, and that is just me doing this. And the reason for that is that we had a guest scheduled to come on June the 23rd on Sunday nights, because that's when we always record. And I'd been messaging this guy all week, and he said that he was down to do it. And then the day that we record, he doesn't reply anymore. So then at that point, after waiting for like an hour and a half for this guy and he just doesn't show up, Ben and I put together a little like garbage episode, honestly. I think it was like 30 minutes long that we recorded, and it was terrible. But thankfully, my good friend Jordan Kurtz from Comments from the Peanut Gallery hooked me up with a fighter that he knew personally and that would be able to help us out on short notice. This fighter currently competes in the UFC bantamweight division, where he's 13-3-1. And he's just coming off a victory against Ryan McDonald, where he fought at UFC Nashville in March of this year. I can honestly say that I'm happy that things fell the way they did, so that way this interview could happen, and that way you guys could hear it. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my brother, Chris El Guapo Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so did you have a good night of training so far? I know you just got out of a training session.
We did. I'm home. I'm resting up now, But it was a really good practice. It was very grueling.
That's awesome, brother. I'm glad to hear that. So let's go ahead and take it back to the past for a second. So you were born in Greenville, Texas, correct?
I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey.
Okay. Well, that's not what was listed on Tapology, so I'm glad that you clarified that.
No, I was born in New Jersey, and I moved to Texas when I was about 3 to 4 years old. So,
okay.
I mean, I was a baby when I moved, so.
Gotcha. So do you consider that home, or do you consider New Jersey home?
I mean, I give respect for it. You know, I'm from New Jersey.
I got you.
But I was raised in Texas, and I call Texas, I call Texas home because I was raised there my whole life.
I got you. So was fighting popular in the area that you grew up in, or was that something that you kind of stood out as, like something that you were only interested in?
No, believe it or not, man. A lot of karate schools would open up in our town, but they would close really quick. It's it was a phase for a couple months, maybe a year or two, and then they would get shut down. They would close down. And a little shop, it became known as Chop Shop MMA, but in the beginning it was called Combat Sports and Fitness.
Okay. And
that was the original name, and when that kind of opened up, that was like a big deal. But it was MMA. It wasn't just karate. It did have karate in there and other kind of martial arts, but it was primarily a catch wrestling, submission wrestling gym.
Yeah, I got you. So that's how you started out. That was the first thing that you kind of got your foot in the door into MMA.
No. Well, to MMA, yes, but I've been in karate and judo growing up my whole life.
Okay.
So, I was doing that, but when I was 15, about to be 16, that's when that gym opened up, and that's originally what got me my foot in the door, was that gym.
I got you. Now, did you watch any pro wrestling as a kid?
Oh, of course. Well,
okay.
I watched it. We used to watch it when it was, WWF, World Wrestling Federation, and then something about they were about to get sued because they took the name of Wild Life Federation, something like that.
Yeah.
And that big thing that happened, you're kind of too young to probably know about that, but
I know a little bit because my co-host Ben, that's usually with me, he's a huge pro wrestling fan. At least back in the day, he really enjoyed it. So
and yeah, I loved it when it was The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin,
right.
Triple H, the Hardy Boys, all Rikishi, the butt slaps and all that.
Yeah.
I was into it when it was that, that wrestling, but now, no, I don't watch it.
I got you. Now, did you wrestle in high school, or did you compete in any type of sports in high school?
No, I did karate and judo growing up, and that was that. We did it just to do something else, because we were always high energetic, kids.
Mm-hmm.
And but our sport of choice was soccer. That's what we were striving to become really good at, and hopefully take the next step and go pro.
Okay, I gotcha. Now, 2013, you make your amateur debut and your pro debut as a fighter. Now, what was the feeling like the first time that you ever stepped into an arena and you're wrapping up your gloves and everything and you get into action? What did that feel like? Like how could you best describe that?
Man, it's a hell of a rush.
I could imagine.
It it's one of those, like, I remember my old coach used to tell me, it's not like a school fight, or a street fight where you're set to meet at a certain place, right? And the other person may not show up. But, you know, in this type of, game, MMA or any kind of like sanctioned sport when it comes to combat, like 99% of the time that other guy's going to show up, and you're going to get into a fight, and
Mm,
just hearing those words, I was like, man, I got to get prepared. And it was crazy, but I grew up in a rough neighborhood. So, like, I always got in street fights and always got in fights and just always roughing around. And so it wasn't like I was a stranger to fighting,
mm,
but as far as a disciplined sport, I was very new at it. I was training when I was 16. My first fight was when I turned 18. So I was training for about 2.5, 3 years before my first fight. But man, I'm gonna tell you, it's a rush, and as soon as you step into the ring and that bell rings, everything that you've worked on goes out the window, sort of, in a way.
yeah. I guess you're just so caught up in the moment that it's just hard to even kind of think about that kind of stuff.
It is, and that's where the more you do it, the more repetition it becomes. The more you're like, oh, in practice, I realized this position, I can do this, or let me try this. And just like anything, the more you do it, the more you get comfortable. And now it's to a point where, like, it's almost weird. It's like, I don't know, like, somebody asked me this the other day. um do you like to fight, or you just do it because of money? Do you do it because of, like, fame? And I was like, I don't have neither one of those two. So it's like, obviously it's none of that. I said, I just love, when it all boils down to it, I just love to fight. I just love the competition. And it's just the moment I'm not fighting, it's like, it's weird.
Hmm.
I love having my days off and, time with the family. But when when it all comes full circle, it's like, man, like, almost weird not training, or taking days off. It's like, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Just from sports in general, I've done sports my whole life, and even like playing soccer or any other recreational sport we grew up playing. I don't really know what an off day is. Since I was a kid, we were always in after school sports. Like, during school we were in sports, and then after school we were in sports. So I hardly was able to. I did have a childhood where I got to, like, ride a bicycle with friends, but at the same time we didn't, because it was just constantly sports, sports, sports.
Yeah, I
You know,
got you. Yeah, so you fought in several organizations. I mean, you fought in Bellator, you fought in World Series of Fighting, but you made your UFC debut last year in November 2018. Now, what was that feeling like, stepping into the octagon for the first time under the bright lights?
I'm glad, like you said, I'm glad I got to experience Bellator and WSOF. I felt like they kind of helped propel me, and kind of helped. It kind of helped, you know what I mean? It kind of helped me to get to the big stage, and it helped me once I was there. I didn't perform the way I was supposed to, the way I wanted to, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But that's a lesson, that's a lesson learned, and got on with it. But
Well, that was
it
actually my next question for you. Was, I know that your debut didn't go your way because you lost via second round submission, and I know that nobody wants to lose their debut, but like, how much of a lesson learned was that? Because I'm sure that you took so much away, considering how good you looked in your next fight, the last fight that you had at UFC Nashville.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, I took a lot away from it. I mentally got in a bad it is what it is. I'm not no excuses, but fighting is a very big mental thing, and certain things came up, and I just couldn't get it. I couldn't separate regular life situation from my fight. It kind of overcrowded my mind, and the day of the fight, I kind of drowned. I was thinking too much of what was going on in my life, and I should have been a professional and put that aside and taken care of the task at hand, but I didn't, and it cost me, but not taking nothing from, Honey Barcelos. He's an amazing, fighter himself. But it's a lesson learned for me, and I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, now that's something I'm very interested in is the like the psychology of fighters. How much would you say, like how much a part of the game is the mental aspect of it? Because obviously the physical plays a huge role. Like you have to be in shape, you have to train and everything. But honestly, how much of it is mental, would you say?
I mean, it also depends what all you have going on in your everyday life. Some people deal with really big things and stuff like that. Like I'm going through a custody battle and I'm trying to get my son, and so it's very taxing. It takes a big toll on me, but for me, I believe it's 80-20, 80% mental, 20% physical.
Wow.
Because at the end of the day, you have to get in there and you have to get your hands dirty,
Mm-hmm.
But you're easily defeated in your mind first. Most people get defeated in their mind and then their body goes right after. So I believe it's an 80-20. That's just my opinion.
Now, how good did you feel whenever you fought Ryan McDonald in your last fight? Because, I mean, the way that you looked while you were fighting, like, you flowed so well and you had such good leg kicks and everything in that fight. Like, your stand-up in particular was it looked very good.
Thank you.
So, what did that feel like, being in there and getting your first UFC win?
Oh, I mean, it's, anytime you win, it's an amazing feeling, And, I don't know. I mean, it felt good. It really did. There's some things that I wish I could have done better or, but like I said, it's a lesson. And what made me perform, I feel, the way I did in that fight was I kind of accepted the things for what they were. And I was able to be a professional and I put that stuff aside for the 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that knowing that, okay, in 15 minutes, I'll come back to that. In 15 minutes, I'll be human again. But for these 15 minutes, I have to be Superman. Nothing can get in the way of this.
Right.
And I was able to do that. And and I plan on doing that August 10th as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to ask you about your upcoming fight. And I know that you train out at Factory X in Colorado. What's it like training with those guys out there?
Oh, man, it's a world-class gym. It's the number 2 gym in the world. We just got moved up to number 2. Here soon, man, we're going to be number 1. I mean, it's just the sky's the limit for our gym and for our teammates and the coaching staff. It's a big family, and it's just the structure and the way the culture is at the gym. It's running on all cylinders, it's firing really very well. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, from Coach Mark being the head coach and his wife running the front desk, and they communicate very well. And just the way they run their business, it allows everything else to flow smoothly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And it's just, like I said, they're the main ones, but then it just kind of branches off into other people. You got the Kamosi brothers, they're there and they're really good coaches. You have Brandon Roybal, you have Professor Mario Kohara, he's our jiu-jitsu coach. I mean, everybody has their thing that they do that helps the gym run the way it does. You know what I mean? And like I said, man, it's a blessing and it's a privilege for at least for me to be there and just be amongst the elite,
Now, like you said, your next fight is coming up. Now, correct me if this pronunciation wrong. Is it Geraldo de Freitas?
Shit, I mean, you got me. I mean,
Okay.
I think Geraldo de Freitas.
De Freitas.
Yeah, the I guess in English, the Freitas. Or,
Yeah.
I'm sure if my professor was here, he would say it exactly the way he's supposed to. But Geraldo de Freitas, I think, Jr. So
Right. Well, you're going to be fighting him at UFC Uruguay. Will this be your first time going out to Uruguay?
This will be my first time ever going to Uruguay and fighting. So I'm excited. It's an international fight, and
yeah, that's awesome.
My dad's from Colombia. He's South American, and my mom's from Central America, Guatemala. So I don't feel like I'm going into enemy territory. To me, it's just, I'm going and I'm taking over South America. That's the way I look at it, and I'm what I'm planning on doing.
Gotcha. That's a great mindset to have for it. Now, do you have an official prediction for the fight that you want to give here? How it's going to go down?
Oh, I don't ever know. I don't even, honestly, when people ask that, they're like, what do you think you're going to do? I don't even know half the time what the hell I'm going to do.
You just go out there and win.
Yeah, I just go out there and I try to get the job done, and as long as I perform to the best that I can, I'm a happy person.
Right.
I can sit here and be like, oh, I'm going to knock him out. I'm going to submit him. The fight can only win, you're either going to knock the person out or you're going to get, I'm either going to knock him out or submit him, or it goes to decision. My job is to, if it goes to decision, make it completely one-sided where I win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
kind of like in your last fight.
Exactly, but, I'm going to try to get the finish. I'm sure he's going to do the same thing. But as far as what exactly I'm going to do, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I would lie if I said, I'm going to do something. Because I don't even know what I'm going to do myself.
Well, I appreciate the honesty. That's something that I feel like you don't get from fighters that much anymore. So it's good to see that. Yeah. Now, like I've said before, my co-host Ben isn't here. So in honor of him, for every fighter that we have come on, we wanted to play like a game of word association to kind of close the show. So I have 10 words written down. They're all like in the field of MMA, and I just want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind whenever I read them, okay?
Okay, so how long do I have to like...
It's just first thing that pops in your head, you say that, okay?
Jesus.
All right, first thing is UFC.
I'm sorry, let's start over. I didn't hear you.
First one is UFC.
The greatest athletes in the world when it comes to fighting.
Dana White.
The boss.
The GOAT, a.k.a. greatest of all time.
Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, them guys.
TJ Dillashaw.
Steroids.
Bruce Buffer.
The best voice in the building.
ESPN Plus.
Where are we fighting at? What's going to be broadcasting our fights?
Henry Cejudo.
Beast.
Hoist Gracie.
Legend.
Brock Lesnar.
Fat ass. I don't know. Steroid user. I don't care for him.
All right, and then MMA for the last one.
MMA, mixed martial arts.
Gotcha. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on, especially as short notice as this was. You don't know how much we appreciate this for real, especially for you. We're honored to have you as the first fighter to come on the show, and it just means the world to us, so we really appreciate it. Now, for all of our listeners out there, where can they find you at on social media?
I appreciate that, man. Thank you for having me. You can find me on social media, Chris Gutierrez on Facebook, or El Guapo MMA on Instagram, and then on Twitter it's C Gutierrez MMA or C Gutierrez 135. One of those. You'll find me. I'm not hard.
Oh, now El Guapo. That is your nickname while you fight. And I didn't know Spanish, so I had to look that up. So tell the listeners what that means, because I kind of thought it was funny. El
Guapo means the handsome one, the cute one, the pretty one.
That's you,
all
Chris.
the above.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, man, for coming on. We really appreciate this, and I wish you the best of luck in your next fight.
Thank you so much, man, for having me.
Yep. All right, that'll wrap up this episode of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Remember to follow Chris on Instagram at L_Guapo_MMA or on Twitter at C Gutierrez MMA. And if you're not following us on social media, be sure to follow at The Fight Addicts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And follow mine and Ben's personal Twitters, which we have now at TFA_Seth and at TFA_Ben. Again, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode, and be sure to tune in next week for episode number 14. And in honor of Ben, peace.